All right, this week I've actually got a title for this one. Uh, I'm calling this "Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus," because um, when you get right down to it, that's what the Christian life is about. It's it's following Jesus, doing things the way He would want us to do them, and following Him requires us to have our eyes firmly fixed upon Him. If we're not watching Him, we we can't follow Him. And the what I'm going to talk about here comes from the Gospel of Matthew. It's spending a lot of time there lately. Um, but this is a somewhat well-known story. It takes place immediately after Jesus is finished feeding the 5,000. That story of the little boy with the loaves and the fishes, and Jesus miraculously multiplied that tiny amount of food to feed a crowd of 5,000 men. The 5,000 is just speaking of the men. That doesn't even count the women and children that were there, which means there's probably 2 to 3 times as many people there. Um, but after that was all over, after he had done that, Jesus basically told the disciples, "You guys go on ahead. I'll catch up with you later." So the disciples went on their way because they were going to go. They got to a boat to go to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, which is really just a gigantic lake, but nevertheless a body of water called a sea. So they got in the boat, and Jesus went off to pray alone. And so they got in the boat, and they started going to the other side, and a storm came up. And in the midst of this storm, Jesus finally catches up with the disciples. And the story is here. I'm going to pick up in, it's in Matthew 14, and I'm going to pick up in verse 25. It says, "During the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. 'It's a ghost,' they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, 'Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid.' 'Lord, if it's you,' Peter replied, 'tell me to come to you on the water.' 'Come,' he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, 'Lord, save me.' Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. 'You of little faith,' he said, 'why did you doubt?' And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, 'Truly, you are the Son of God.'" Now, what I'm getting from this is that Jesus was walking on top of the water as if it were solid ground. And that freaked the disciples out. They didn't know what this, right there in the scripture it says they thought it was a ghost. But Jesus said, "No, it's me." And Peter was able, when Jesus called him out onto the water, he was able to do things that it would seem only Jesus was able to do. He was able to do what was seemingly impossible. He walked on the water like Jesus did, as if it were solid ground. He did this because his eyes were focused squarely upon Jesus. He wasn't he was looking at Jesus. But it also says that as soon as he took his eyes off of Jesus and saw the storm around him, the wind blowing everywhere, he immediately fell into the water and started to sink. And this is a great allegory for our lives and how we need to focus on Jesus Christ at all times. Never, not for a second, take our eyes off of him, because when we do, that's when the proverbial storms of life are going to come in and absolutely overtake us, and they will crush us. But when we have our eyes fixed upon Jesus, upon Christ the Lord, he will protect us. He will keep us safe. And it's the other thing is that even when we do slip up, even when we do take our eyes off of him, we are still able to be rescued from when we take our eyes off of him, and we feel ourselves getting enveloped by the storms of life, the things that bring us down, the things that just make us just want to curl up in a ball and die sometimes. Just like Peter did, Lord, save me. We cry out to him, say, Lord, save me. And every time he's there with an outstretched arm to pull us back up and bring us back to him. That is the amazing thing about it, that Jesus is always there to pick us back up when we fall. The ideal, obviously, is that we would always remain focused on him. And I'm not trying to claim to be anything special, because I'm not. Anybody who knows me knows that I am not anything special. I'm not some kind of super Christian or anything like that. But I can say from personal experience that when my eyes are fixed upon Jesus Christ, and when I'm focusing on him and my life, and I'm doing everything that I know how to stay focused on him, yeah, there's still stuff going on. Things are still happening in my life. Bad things are still going to happen, but you're able to weather those storms better. You're not going to sink. You're not going to get overtaken by them. You're going to have that focus where it needs to be, where it's supposed to be. And that's what Peter did. That's how he was able to walk on water. That's how we are able to weather the storms that would otherwise sink us emotionally, spiritually. And when we're focused on him and only him all the time, though the storms of life may rage, we will be able to withstand them. And I mean, this life, this Christian life, I mean, any life on earth is not easy. I mean, a child could could tell you that uh, life is tough, and there are the proverbial storms that are constantly raging. And if we don't make it a intentional effort, see, because that's the thing. Focusing on Jesus and keeping our eyes set upon Him. That's not. I mean, it's difficult because, I mean, you've got to really focus. You've got to try. It has to be an intentional thing that you do, that you are actively doing. Because with the storms around in life, it's hard. It's hard to stay focused on Jesus because there's so many distractions. There's something over here. There's something over there. This thing's pulling me over here. This thing's here, and Jesus is over here saying, "Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me." And sometimes we're not. We're looking at all these different things, and that's why it has to be. We have to say, no matter what, no matter what's over here, no matter what's over there, I'm looking at Jesus. I'm looking here because this is how I'm going to be able to deal with all this other stuff over here. This is how I'm going to be able to deal with all of this other stuff over here. And it has to be like, it has to be an intentional thing. It you know, there's going to be days when we don't, when we feel like it's just too hard. Like I said, you got things over here, you got this thing, you got this thing, and it's driving you nuts. And the idea, like, you think, oh, I don't have time to think about Jesus, to maybe read a verse out of the Bible or something. But you have to, because again, I can say from experience, having gone, weeks at a time being in the Word and reading the Bible, and the peace that brings in life, regardless of the various trials and storms. And I've also gone weeks where I've not even picked up a Bible, not even looked at a Bible, and knowing how stressed and all tore up inside that I feel, because and I'm convinced that that's why, because I've taken my eyes off Jesus and I've started focusing on all this other stuff that's around me. And it's got to be, Jesus has got to be the main focus. This is my universal movement for focus on Jesus. That's pretty much all I can say about this, because you look at Jesus, focus on Jesus, intentionally make it a priority in your life to focus on Jesus, to at least read something out of the Bible every single day. A strategy that I have adopted, when if I read nothing else from the Bible, I read Proverbs, because the book of Proverbs has 31 chapters, and most, at least half of the months of the year, have 31 days in them. And that makes for a perfect Bible reading plan at any given time, any given day. Say today is the 30th of the month. Today is April 30th. And so I would open the Bible and read Proverbs chapter 30. Today's the 30th, read the 30th chapter. No matter what day it is, no matter when it is, I mean, ideally you read through, because Proverbs is incredible. It's full of wisdom. It's full of great, just little moral tidbits that you can learn all kinds of things from that book. It's an incredible book. But just read one chapter out of Proverbs. If you read nothing else, just read one, whatever that date is, the corresponding chapter in the book of Proverbs. And at least you will get something. You know, I mean, if you can, please read more. Read as much as you can of that Bible, because that is where strength comes from. Strength comes from the Lord. And that's how to weather the storms, keeping focused on Christ and keeping focused on Him at all times. And that is how we make it through the troubles and trials of this life and the storms that rage constantly. And when we focus on Him and we stay focused on Him, we can make it.